post-fire conditions. You can see if it was a large or small fire, a hot, intermediate, or gentle burn. You can determine if natural barriers were utilized, if the control line was properly placed, how well the fire crew did its job, and what kind of equipment they had. You can also see the exposures that were protected, those which carried the potential for even greater loss. Yes, the trained eye can tell quite a bit, not everything. For example, we don't know how promptly and efficiently the crew responded to the fire, what weather conditions they faced, the mistakes that were made, the accidents that may have happened, or if anyone was injured. For these, we had to be there and know what to look for. So that's what we're going to do. Observe some fire effects as trained professionals see them. We're going to see the right ways to handle the job. Because in the business of wildland fire suppression, from the chief to the newest department member, everyone must understand and practice the basics of wildland fire suppression. Fire departments provide initial attack on many wildland fires. Volunteers are the backbone of these departments. The new member of the department, you're now part of a professional firefighting team. Your team members will depend on you to do the right thing at the right time. The more you know about fire suppression techniques and the many factors affecting fire behavior, the better you'll be able to perform. Before you can start to fight a fire, you have to know what to look for. The professional looks at a wildland fire in a special way. This is known as size up. The firefighting job is divided into 3 tasks: size up, initial attack, and mop up. During fire season, even before fires are reported, you should know the current burning conditions. Okay. Active size up begins the moment that a fire is reported to the dispatcher. Okay, well, all right. Lincoln being Lawson Township personnel, ordered Woods and Brush Car, 8500. Size up assessment continues while en route to the station or directly to the scene of the fire. Stay alert for indicators that might influence the fire's behavior, such as wind direction, temperatures, humidity, and the time of day. Prompt response is of prime importance in the early stages of a fire. It can mean the difference between a small fire and a large one. Know your area. Be aware of detours and alternate routes, bridges, railroads, and traffic patterns. Speed is important, but don't jeopardize the safety of the crew and of other people. Remember, too, that fire suppression equipment is expensive. So drive carefully and position the crew inside the vehicles until you're at the scene of the fire. The initial report usually gives you an idea of the size of the fire. Fire behavior conditions will give you an idea of the rate of spread. For the safety of crew members and to prevent as much damage from the fire as possible, you must be able to anticipate how that fire is likely to act as it progresses. Rely on communications as you approach the site and start applying your knowledge of fire behavior. Remember that no two fires are exactly alike. However, most fires do behave in the same general ways. That is, they are influenced by the same set of variable factors which must be evaluated and continually monitored as strategy and tactics are determined. As you size it up. You've arrived at the scene of the fire quickly and safely, and you have a pretty good idea of what kind of fire you're facing. It is now very important to determine which of the crew members who have arrived at the scene is the individual in charge.
Okay, Steve, what do we got here?
Sometimes called the fire boss, fire chief, or crew boss. Whatever their title, they need to establish and maintain clear and effective communications with each crew member.
Thing. There's nothing in there that's of any concern to us as far as structures or improvements. What kind of fuel we burn? All right, it's all hardwoods, hardwood litter, and some brush.
Everyone in the crew must keep the following priorities in mind at all times. Life, then exposures, more valuable structures, forest lands, or crops endangered, and then extinguishing the fire.
Across the head and down the right flank, turning as we go.
So, for the size-up, you take into account the general factors which influence the fire and its rate of spread. What type of fuels are in and around the fire? How are these fuels arranged? How close together are they? How much moisture, if any, have the fuels absorbed recently? What is the air temperature? What is the relative humidity? What time of day is it? What is the wind doing right now? What is it likely to do over the next few minutes and hours? What is the topography in and around the fire? The ground is hilly. How steep is the slope? What direction does it face? Are there saddles or canyons that the wind can use to play havoc with the blaze? Your continuing on-site size-up needs to include the special factors involved. Every fire has them. Are there any barriers nearby which will stop or at least slow down the fire? A lake or river, a road, a change in fuel type. Is that lake or river a convenient source of water for the pumper, aircraft, tanker, portable pumps, or backpacks? Are there enough men and equipment on the scene to extinguish the blaze or hold it in check until reinforcements arrive? Will the topography allow vehicles ready access to the fire? Are there any hazards that might endanger men and equipment, such as flashy fuels near the fire or spot fires? And of course, take a good look at your opponent, the main blaze itself. It has certain defining characteristics. Know them. Most eastern wildland fires are surface fires. They burn away the low fuels and ground litter. Fires which burn through the treetops are more unusual, more spectacular, and more dangerous. They are fast-moving and usually backed by an oncoming surface fire. Ground fires burn below the ground level, consuming organic matter such as peat and mud. They are difficult to suppress and often quite hazardous. Now, how do you analyze the behavior of this fire? First, determine the fire's origin, source. Protect this area for investigators to examine later. And locate the head, usually the point of the fastest burning that's happening right now. Because it moves with the wind, the head is the part of the fire which does the most damage. On most occasions, you'll want to control it. This is the right flank, and this is the left flank of the fire. Identify the rear of the blades. A sudden 180-degree wind shift could make it the new head. The same thing could happen to the flanks. Be certain to identify two potentially dangerous phenomena: fingers and spot fires. Fingers can flare up and endanger crews working above or near them. Wind-borne firebrands can start spot fires, which can instantly threaten the safety of a crew. And on steep slopes, chunks of burning fuel can roll and start new fires below a crew. Unburned areas inside the fire, such as marshes, knolls, or areas of heavy or sparse fuels, are known as islands. The perimeter is the outside boundary of the fire. Once you know the shape and direction of your fire, determine the rate of spread, normally expressed in chains per hour. Now that you have estimated the probable direction and rate of spread, figure out a line of retreat for each segment of your crew and for any citizens endangered by the fire. Keep crowd control in mind. One of the lookers could have set the fire.
Steve, get Bloomington Township and...
Now is the time to decide if you need to call for specialized assistance.
Bloomington Township, 52.
52.
Request UTX state, have them stand by crew. We've got a brush fire.
Rise up is continuous throughout the firefighting action because the variable elements can alter the behavior of a fire very quickly during every phase of control. You are now ready to determine which method of initial attack to use on this particular fire. There are two different types of initial attack: direct and indirect. The direct attack is used where the flames are low and the amount of heat and smoke permit access to the fire's edge, where there is plenty of manpower available, where mechanized equipment can reach the fire, and where the area to be controlled is not too large. Start control at any barrier that can be used as an anchor point, a place where safe control work can begin. Don't scatter the crew. Use them as a unit. Don't try the impossible. A direct attack means suppressing the flames right on the edge of the fire. Direct attack is usually used on small fires or on fires in light, sparse fuels, or on the flanks and rear of large fires, or on any part of the fire where the burning is not too intense. The direct attack is often the application of water, either from tank truck, aircraft, or backpack. The idea is not to totally saturate the burning area, but to cool the flames down. Water is a valuable commodity and should be conserved when scarce or when the supply sources are distant. Cooling the heat source with dirt is another technique. The fire control line is constructed on the cooled down edge of the fire by removing unburned fuel away from the still warm burned areas. The width of the control line depends on the amount of available unburned fuel. A good rule of thumb for surface fires is to make the line twice as wide as the height of the available surface fuel. Partially burned material should be removed from the line and placed inside the burned area. Unburned fuel should be placed outside the line. Heavy fuel should be removed a safe distance, or, if warm, placed inside the line. If the line is being constructed on a steep slope, be prepared for rolling fuels. It may be necessary to build cup trenches, trenches deep enough to catch any hot rolling material. The advantages of the direct attack are that the fire is stopped with little further spread. Burned acreage is held to a minimum. No backfiring or burnout is necessary. These techniques should only be used by trained crews. In an emergency, the crew can always escape quickly into the burned area. The control line can be constructed to take advantage of already burned-out sections. The disadvantages are the proximity to smoke and heat. And since the control line must follow the edge of the moving fire, it becomes long and irregular, and often cannot take advantage of natural barriers. This may create a greater danger of breakovers and spot fires. The alternative to the direct attack is the indirect attack. Simply fall back a safe distance from the fire based on the rate of spread and construct a control line that parallels the fire perimeter. Again, always anchor the line. Then burn out all intervening fuels between the line and the advancing fire. This controlled use of fire is known as burning out. Use the indirect attack when the fire is burning too intensely, or where you don't have the manpower for a direct attack. This method is often used against the hotter parts of a fire, while a direct attack is launched against the less critical sections. There are advantages to the indirect attack. It's less taxing on the crew, and personnel can work together more effectively by building a solid, regular control line, often with mechanized equipment. Barriers can be used to their best advantage. The fire line may be less irregular and thus shorter, and there is less danger of breakovers or fire jumping the line. But disadvantages exist in the indirect method, too. The burnout may escape, or the crew could be flanked by the fire while building their line. And, of course, the indirect method can involve the loss of more valuable acreage than does the direct attack. Nearby structures may preclude using this approach. Remember, each fire is different, and attack methods may vary from hour to hour. Size up is a continual re-evaluation of fire behavior, weather conditions, and availability of manpower and equipment.
Hampson Road, pretty well under control. TX, state crew.
Now let's take a look at the equipment and how it's used. When using brush trucks and pumpers, traverse the fire's perimeter in a counterclockwise manner. This allows the driver an unobstructed view of the fire line. The driver should proceed with the window down to test the smoke and heat radiation, and to keep the nozzle man in plain view. If the nozzle man is riding behind the cab, he must be able to communicate verbally with the driver. The nozzle man suppresses the fire ahead of the vehicle. This allows the driver to turn into the burn for safety. During the spring fire season, soft ground is another hazard. Even if equipment cannot be driven to the fire, it may still be practical to lay hose. Use the hoses to complement portable pumps and backpacks. Maintain as short a hose as possible. Hoses and truck tires can burn too. A short hose lay will also aid in quick evacuation if necessary. Utilize all safety devices, such as ear protection and goggles. Avoid obstacles. They can trap your hose. The most common and versatile equipment used in wildland fire suppression are these devices: council rakes, broom rakes, axes, shovels, brush hooks, swatters, and backpacks. Each hand tool has been designed to eliminate at least one side of the fire triangle. For example, the council rake, fuel; the shovel, heat and oxygen; the backpack, heat. Once the fire is under control, it's time to start the third phase of wildland fire suppression: mop-up. By this point, the crew may be hot, dirty, and tired. But good mop-up technique, hard as it is, will pay dividends. It may mean the difference between a good night's sleep and coming back out to the scene of a fire that was supposed to be dead. Mop-up includes use of the following techniques. Mix dirt into burning debris to help extinguish it. If you still have water left, use it and mix it into the dirt and smoldering material. Get the hot spots out first, then check the fire line for any burning snags. If they jeopardize the line, they should be thrown. This should only be done by trained personnel. Burning snags near the line may result in this. Depending on fire behavior and suppression standards in your locale, extinguish all hotspots within 50 feet of the line. The overall fire line should be clean down to the mineral soil. Some cold trailing. Use your hands to carefully locate hotspots on stumps and logs. Turn all logs parallel to a slope to prevent rolling. Above all, do not leave the scene until you've checked well outside the perimeter for spot fires. All material outside the line should be dead out. Remember, the officer in charge, and only this individual, declares the fire out. Odds are this fire is dead. Even experienced firefighters had to go back and fight the same fire again, a few hours or a day later. If you're not sure it will stay out, if you're faced with extreme fire conditions, leave a patrol crew at the site. Back at the station, you'll have a chance to fight the fire again as you clean and inventory your equipment. For maintenance of gear is so essential that it must be an automatic response after every call.
So let's shift and push the fire into those heavier fuels.
Now, you may feel you've looked at this fire in every possible way. And you have, except one.
Yeah, let's talk about that car and go ahead and fill out this run report.
All right, we'll go ahead and do that.
The fire has to be reported promptly and accurately to the state forester, state fire marshal, or both.
Down the gully there.
Do it while the facts are still fresh in your mind. Any notes you took during the suppression action can be very helpful. You need to include the size of the burned area and a map showing location, direction, cause, and type of fuel burned. This is a fairly simple procedure, but the important thing to remember is this. The job is never done until the report is completed. The reports are vital to your statewide fire control program, and they're important to your department as well. For example, this 1¼ ton 4x4 was acquired through the Federal Excess Property Program. It was easily converted into a brush truck, ideal for fighting wildland fires. The way it was justified was by showing a need for it through reports. These reports are the statistics that provide the basis for effective fire prevention programs. Report is the final assessment of the fire. Make it reflect the job was done. It should show fighting crew responding promptly and efficiently. A size-up that takes all firefighting factors into consideration, especially safety. A team approach to firefighting. Constant reassessment of the fire situation. Continuous communications. A thorough job of mop-up. And all important descriptive information. Why, how. Again, no two wildland fires ever seem to be exactly the same. That's why professionals study and train. And you'll be a professional firefighter once you've learned the basics of wildland fire suppression.